Okay, so let me show you my creation in all its glory. So I wrote a story a while back, and this is a little sketch from one of the scenes that I wanted to do called Annie's Grave. What I really want to do to start with is to just kind of sketch out what I wanted the idea for before I started cutting popsicle sticks. I'll just throw a little bit of shading in here, see the dog's name, maybe add some ferns later. That might not actually get into it, but I ordered some glycol to try and preserve some plants, and maybe I'll add another video, but for now, I'll just leave it like that. Anyways, as you can see, I'm kind of like trying to rough up the popsicle sticks just to make sure that they have a little bit more edging. I wanted to point out the things that I wanted to use, like flock and how I wanted to paint it. So as you can see, I'm starting to apply some super glue to the cross, and then the little holes to put little pieces of wire to act as nails. When I finish that, I'm just going to carve in a little bit of wear and tear, and then I'm going to pull out my styrofoam so that I can make a base. As you can see, it's basically going to be a bunch of chunky cuts, mostly because it's going to be covered in painted flock, so I don't really need to focus on detail here. Now time for a quick test fit for the cross, and then it's off to the garage for some quick priming. This actually didn't work all that well, but it'll work well enough for when I have to paint it. I used some old Warhammer primer from my junior nerding years. As I said before, it didn't work super well, but it did well enough for what I needed it to do. Alright, now to paint the base with the color that I affectionately call Uncomfortable Silence Before the Storm Brown, to act as an undercoat before I add any flocking. Just make sure that I won't have any glaring blue or white primer showing up for the base after I add the flock. It might actually show up at all, but I want to make sure that there's at least something there to hide it. Finally, I'll add an undercoat of brown to the grass just to make sure that it looks a little bit weathered. And then I'll put a little bit of green on the base to make sure that the Uncomfortable Silence brown look okay. Oh, I almost forgot. I did a little bit of dry brushing here with some tan color to bring out the highlights of the cross, and then put a little bit of green to act as moss. Finally, I'll put the name down of Annie, and then I'll move on to adding the flock. Now, I don't know about you, but making your own flock is actually really boring and time consuming to make, but it's better than spending $10 on buying something at a comic store. So anyways, I use mine with a little bit of cedar sawdust and some acrylic paints, and then I separate it using a sieve. Finally, I use some spray adhesive to put the initial part of the flock on, using bigger stuff first, and then I'll use a little bit of the smaller, finer flock to really build up that kind of terrain look. So at the end here, I'm just showing you a very poorly rendered version of what I did, and here's a much nicer version taken on my phone. Finally, I'm going to use my airbrush to spray some lighter colors on the top to bring out the highlights of the earth, a little greener to make the blending nicer, and then I'm just going to stick that cross right back in there. Oh, and also I protected it with a matte finish with some Liquitex Matte Medium. So there you have it, my first miniature named Annie's Grave. Hope to make a much bigger set that I can add some clay characters and make a much bigger scale, and then, show everyone my story. So thanks for watching.